something has changed. And I don't know if you've been feeling it, but time really does feel different right now, doesn't it? And it's almost like a day or even a whole week can disappear. And it's like manifestation is actually accelerating. But also along with that is old wounds are surfacing and people are waking up feeling pretty exhausted, even with a full night's sleep. And it feels like reality is rearranging itself really fast. And it's like it's rearranging itself faster than humans can catch up right now. And so, I've had people in my inbox asking me, what's going on? what is going on? And so I sat with this. I've been sitting with this all week actually, and I pulled some cards and then I connected with my Sasquatch guide. So I will be bringing his message in to around this. And I also wanted to ask, what is this CERN shutdown? What's the CERN role in all of this too, specifically around collective timeline shifts and what humanity is moving through right now? And so the cards that came through were pretty cool, actually. Now, they're not talking about fear. I just want to make that known first. This is definitely not about, fear mongering, but it is about truth. And so these cards are really speaking to the initiation that we've all been going through. And they were talking about the end of this great cycle and the birth of another one. And I think, I've mentioned a few times this year about this rebirth energy. Now, what they showed me actually changed the way I personally understood what's happening on Earth right now. And, we all have this sense of it. And then, tuning in, it was just really interesting. So stay with me until the end, because after I share the spirit messages from the cards, I'll also be sharing what came through from my Sasquatch guide, Cosmo, around what's happening right now. Okay, so let's dive in. Now, whether you've been calling this timeline shifts, quantum shifts, timeline or quantum acceleration, or simply just a feeling of, reality has become almost impossible to keep up with right now. Yeah, it's because the field has changed and it keeps changing. Like, it just keeps changing. And this is where we're getting this sense of losing time or things are accelerating. I mentioned the old wounds surfacing, and there is definitely a reason to that. We are seeing relationships literally end overnight. Some people, okay, some people are awakening really rapidly right now, okay, while others seem to be doubling down in the fear. Now, when I asked Spirit about CERN, in particular around, what's happening and its connection to the collective experience right now, what came forward was, and I'll take you through the message, okay? So we first have this invitation from the circle. Okay, and the architecture of time itself. And the circle is really here to remind us that timelines are not linear, okay? They are living spirals, and most of humanity experiences time as a straight line. Yep, fair. Past, present, future, but consciousness itself doesn't move this way. It actually moves in cycles and spirals and fractal returns, yeah? So when this card appeared, it felt like humanity has really entered this completion of a massive energetic cycle. We've been speaking about it all year. The old identities, the old karmic agreements, the old collective programs are literally reaching their expiration point. And that is why so many people are feeling pretty disorientated right now, okay? The old operating system is literally dissolved and the new one is stabilizing. I don't want to say it hasn't. They're saying it hasn't completely stabilized yet. Okay, so the circle Bible also talks about death, and I'm not talking about physical death, I'm talking about identity death, and the death of who you thought you were, and the death of entire realities that you have been occupying for decades. And this is evolution, right? And then we have this this sacrifice energy coming in, and not in the way that you think, okay? Spirit was not talking about sacrifice through suffering, not that kind of vibe. They were really talking about more this sacred exchange energy, okay? There are frequencies that cannot enter a field that is still gripping onto the old, and that's where a lot of humans are right now. Now, humanity is being asked to place something on the altar, okay? And that's not because, God wants to take it from you. It's because your hands cannot receive what they're still gripping onto, and it's this constriction energy, this control energy, and this tightly closed energy. That's the vibe of this, okay? Now, a lot of people are being asked to release uncertainty. That's probably the hardest thing, right? Or it could be releasing the control. For some, it's the victimhood. For some, it's going to be careers or relationships. And some people are releasing entire identities that they have carried literally across lifetimes, okay? And Spirit was really saying around this, you're not losing your life, okay? You're losing the density that cannot enter the next octave. That's the vibe of the sacrifice. And this is where everything feels so accelerated too, because the field is asking for voluntary surrender instead of like that forced collapse energy. And then the cards got really interesting with the sorcerer energy coming in. Now, the sorcerer governs power, not just spiritual power, but creative power, even technological power we could look at it, and the ability to influence reality itself. And, when I looked at this card, again, there was no fear attached to it, but there was a layer of responsibility around this because humanity has crossed a threshold where our external technologies are beginning to mirror the capacities that have always existed within consciousness. The outer world is now becoming a reflection of those inner creative intelligences, okay? So whether we look at AI, or quantum science, or physics, particle physics, even ancient spiritual technologies, it's like they're all asking the same question, which is, what happens when humanity gains enormous power before fully remembering its wisdom? And we have seen this through previous collapses, through previous cycles, through previous experiments that did not end well. And so the medicine of this card is actually humility. Yeah. And that's because, every expansion of power is also an invitation to purify intention, okay? The greater the power, the cleaner the heart must become. And so when we're tuning into CERN itself, yes, it was creating and affecting timelines. Even if we wanted to look at this symbolically within the collective field, this is a place where humanity is attempting to understand the architecture beneath physical reality, right? They're literally trying to prove it. And the current cause of that, which there is a potential that will be an indefinite pause, that they will not come back online. That is just a thread, potential thread here. It's significant energetically. Okay, because the collective itself is also in this integration cycle. And it's almost like humanity has reached this energetic inhale before the great exhale. And it feels like humanity itself is recalibrating. We've been saying that for a while, right? And it's almost like CERN is the physical expression of that. And then we finally had a message from the rainbow come through, which sort of shifted the energy a little bit, because after everything we've just walked through, it's like spirit is finishing with this hope energy, which is actually really beautiful, because the rainbow says that the dawn has already begun. Even if it feels like you're still standing in the darkness, many people think that the breakthrough comes after the storm. Yeah, that's literally what we have been taught. But actually, that breakthrough begins while the storm is. The breakthrough actually begins when the storm is happening, because it's the storm that's kicking up the dust, isn't it? And that is also why some people, if you haven't already, you're going to start feeling this incredible sense of peace, while others are going to feel more activated than ever. Okay. That's because we're actually no longer moving through one collective reality. We are moving through vastly different states of consciousness simultaneously. We're doing it together, and there is a lot of people involved in this collective shift. My cat's sitting on the keyboard. Okay. Love it. So, and so the rainbow isn't saying that, yeah, everything just becomes easy overnight, but it is saying hold your frequency. Don't abandon your own truth through this, because it's going to be really normal to start questioning literally everything in your physical reality that you're seeing. This new world, the golden age, the new earth, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't, just arrive in one day. I know that there are a lot of channelers that speak about that. And yes, there is an element of that that is true. But what I mean is that the shift has been happening. The shift began long ago, and it's emerging now through every choice you make. This is not a season for fear, okay? This is a season of refinement, and it's not a collapse. This energy is not collapse at all, even though the identity structures that have been carrying us through up until now have collapsed in and of themselves. And so this is a beautiful time to remember that every time you choose love over fear, or actually a grounded presence over urgency and panic, you're not just changing your own life, you are helping to stabilize the entire collective field. And so when we look at it like that, the future isn't something that's happening to us. It's something we are participating in through the frequency that we embody, one choice at a time. And so if these energies have left you feeling a little mentally scattered or overwhelmed, I have linked my mental defrag sessions below, and these are really designed to help you clear that mental noise, the mental overwhelm, and bring you back into coherence. So let's start with the Sasquatch message now. Okay, yes, many humans are experiencing a sensation of feeling lost, wondering where life is taking them, what is the next move, and where there was once an element of certainty, there is this energy of a new blank canvas. We say an element of certainty because can you ever truly have certainty? The collective void has been long and windy. With what you call ego, we say identity deaths, the dissolution of karma and old ways, old wounds, and you are finding yourselves traversing. And the way he put it was like an empty map, if you will, where once you thought you knew the way and now it is unknown. But if you look a little closer, it is not dead space. There are seemingly invisible threads on your map, multiple potentials. Pull on a thread and it will illuminate that path for you. How do you pull on such a thread? This is the fun part. So he's like, what is it you want on the map? We will not offer an example here, for we do not want to sway you. Humans have given their power away, outsourcing their own knowledge and desires for far too long. Your soul knows what thread to pull that will align you to the highest timeline available. If you cannot envision it, simply ask your soul. This comes down to a choice, choosing the timeline without needing to see the whole map. Humans were never meant to see the whole map. That is the mystery of creating your own reality. Now to the timeline chaos destabilization many of you are sensing. We're happy to report this is actually a stabilization rather than a destabilization. Your senses are correct. You can smell the shift in the air. You know life will never be the same as it was, and you feel something is coming. We invite you to stay curious around this and not drop into fear. We invite you not to allow resentment at systems, societies, governments, and peoples to fester inside of you. You already know the catastrophic consequences of this. It's time to start treating your body as the ascension technology it is, for it is leading you through. It knows exactly what to do and is speaking with you constantly through the tightness in your chest or your belly, through perhaps it's jaw pain or headache, fatigue, anxiety. Talk to body and body will talk back. You may be surprised or not at what it has to share with you, and then honor that. Now is a time to sense, intuit, and feel your way through this next phase of ascension, not logic your way through. This may be hard for some of you, but the more you fight it, the more difficult it may feel. And then he was just offering up some, some examples of that. So if you really want to allow yourself to intuit your way through this and feel your way through this without fighting it, if you don't meditate, maybe it's time to start meditating. If you don't make intentional time to go out and sit and be with Mother Nature, maybe it's time to do that. If you don't, so just looking at those ways that are bringing you back to you and that don't require much of a thought process, that's really going to support you through this time. And sometimes you might find yourself in a space where the only thing you can do is just let go and see where that next phase leads you, right? Let me know if that makes sense. I trust that this served today, and I will see you next week.